Paul in Texas is on right now. How you doing, Paul?
Hello.
Good. How are you guys doing?
Well, I think we're not doing as good as we thought we were, because you're calling in to tell us how society is dwindling because an absence of God or something. I don't know. Help us out.
Oh yeah. Okay. How was I going to construct this? My argument currently, or it's more of a standing. I promised I wouldn't get too political on this, but without the belief that there is a purpose, like to the universe or a deity or some kind of supernatural being, it's very hard to build a civilization. So that's why I feel like today's civilization is dwindling.
Okay, that's your case?
That is the case, yes. Without God, yes.
I can rebut that instantly, which is why I really wasn't expecting that. So, first of all,
okay,
saying without a belief that there's a purpose to the universe makes it really hard to build a civilization. Well, civilization's already built, and it was built in part by people who had beliefs like that. And those beliefs don't necessarily require God. There can be views that are consistent with a meaning and purpose. But no matter how hard it is, it doesn't mean it's impossible. And it's irrelevant to whether or not it's true. So nothing about your case here. I mean, you just said it's hard to build a civilization without a belief in a purpose. And you think that's why society is dwindling. Well, there's already a civilization. There are people who believe there's a purpose. They just don't necessarily agree with you about what it is. I don't think that there's an externally imposed purpose, but I also don't agree with your claim that society is dwindling. So what's the problem that you're seeing?
Well, I mean, you mentioned it just prior to this call. Afghanistan, the things that are going on over there, they are absent from like Judeo-Christian values. So that is what this country was built on.
No. So this country wasn't built on Judeo-Christian values, but that has nothing to do. So this is so strange, and I apologize because I'm having a little bit of difficulty taking you seriously on this. The fact that there's a war going on.
I gave a pretty reasonable argument. I don't see where you're getting that from, sir.
Well, I'm getting ready to explain it to you if you'd just be quiet for a minute. And you didn't give a pretty reasonable argument. You gave a sentence assertion, which is not actually an argument, which I already completely rebutted. But
yeah, well, you said that you basically said that we still can build a civilization, but you didn't give any reasons why. You kind of just glossed over it and said, "Oh yeah, we can."
I don't need to.
I'm something based on faith, right?
I don't need to, Paul. The thing is, you didn't say it was impossible to build a civilization without a belief in an external purpose. You said it was difficult, and I said even if it's difficult, that doesn't mean it can't happen, and it has happened. See. If you're not going to put together,
you're not giving a real reasonable assertion for why I did it.
I don't have to, Paul. Paul, I'm sorry that you don't understand how arguments work. But when you make an argument that it's really hard to do this without, it's like saying it's really hard to build a house without a hammer. I would agree with you that it's probably going to be hard to build a house without a hammer, and yet it's not impossible. And the house is already built. That is a full-on. And you're saying the house is falling apart because we don't still have a hammer, and I'm saying the hammer is no longer necessary and may not have been necessary to begin with. See, it's not my fault that you propped up a really bad argument. I mean, and it wasn't even a complete argument.
Well, I mean, human beings being as complex as they are, obviously a civilization like this couldn't have formed itself without those set of rules or set of circumstances. So basically, human beings have evolved. I'm not arguing against evolution. The set of rules of how to behave and how to social and cope with other people. I mean, we could have those rules. We could have been a real bad civilization without God, basically.
We have those rules. We don't have a God, and we're whatever civilization we are. It's like you can't stay on one topic real quick, Paul. So let's see if we can do this differently.
I don't see how that's possible. Go ahead.
Well, thank you for.
So it must be impossible then, right?
Jenna.
No, he's actually very triggering to me right now because he doesn't sound like a very honest interlocutor in any way. So
it's kind of different.
I've been speaking I don't know where that's coming from. I've been.
Would you like
really
to know,
patient
or
with
would
this
you like
call.
to
I mean,
tell
you
me
guys are
why I'm
kinda-
wrong?
Why you're wrong about what? What in particular? I mean,
Why I don't think that you're an honest interlocutor.
why you don't think I'm an honest what?
Communicator of your ideas.
I don't think that you are a person.
I don't.
I don't
what I'm
think
not-
that
what am
you
I
are
being
a.
dishonest
I don't
What am I
think.
being dishonest about?
Okay. I don't think that if you even were proven to be wrong, that you would accept it.
I don't. Well, like I said, I don't see what. Nothing is.
Would you?
He has basically went to this art.
Would you accept that if you were in fact proven that your statements were wrong, would you say, okay, you know what? Yeah, I was.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's
Okay.
tons of things that atheists have said that I've said that
So really
100%
easy,
certainty,
Paul.
Yeah, they got
Paul?
what?
So really easily, your case was it's difficult to build a civilization without a belief in an externally imposed purpose, correct?
Yes,
That doesn't mean it's
correct.
impossible though, right?
it doesn't mean that. Well, I listen. Of course, it's physically impossible if
See?
you're just going off of secular values. If you don't believe in anything,
See, Paul, this is
Be
why
perfect.
Jenna doesn't think that you're sincere, because I just exposed that you were wrong and you didn't acknowledge it.
I absolutely believe it's impossible. That's what I said, and I'm sticking
So
to
then
it.
your
I didn't
your
change my
argument
opinion.
should be,
I don't know
then
what
your
you're talking
argument should have been that it is impossible to build a civilization without a belief in an externally devised purpose. That should have been your argument, not it's just difficult.
Well, it's still fundamentally flawed. I mean,
So you're just gonna find
Yes,
reasons
yes,
why
Paul,
you're right,
you are
right?
still fundamentally flawed. But go ahead, Jenna.
No,
no,
I don't want to talk to this
been
guy.
honest. I've committed to every single statement. I don't know, say what you're going on about.
So
You've made a lot of statements.
how do you demonstrate that it's impossible to build a civilization without believing in an externally devised purpose? Because now you've just made an assertion that it's impossible. So how do you prove that?
I mean, you look at other countries that don't have Judeo-Christian values. I mean,
No, Paul. You could look at all the countries in the world, and that still wouldn't be an exhaustive look at all the possible ways to build a civilization, correct?
yes.
So how do you prove that this is impossible? Have you evaluated every possible foundation for a civilization?
Well, I've seen the consistencies and what behavior
Paul?
we tend to.
Paul, why won't you answer the question
What
that you're
behavior
asked?
better civilizations tend
Paul?
to condemn?
Paul, why won't you answer the question that you're asked? Have you evaluated every possible foundation for a civilization?
I have not. You can't just make blank assertions like that. Of course, I have not been to every civilization and know how things run
Paul,
there.
Paul, please just answer the question that you're asked. If you'd stop expounding, this would be much easier. So you haven't investigated every possible foundation for civilization. Since you haven't done that, how do you know that it's impossible without the foundation you say is the only one?
Well, I mean, being the civilization that we are, I mean, you can't necessarily make the case that it's possible, but with no grounds to go off of.
So you're
kind of just
claiming
making
that you've just Paul, you've just said that it was impossible, and now when I've asked you how you could demonstrate it's impossible, you've just said that you can't demonstrate that it's impossible. So, but you also said something curious, which is the civilization that we have. What civilization is it that we're talking about that when you say the civilization we have?
The civilization we live in that's currently dwindling with the absence of God.
I'm trying to figure out exactly what you mean, because you wanted to exclude Afghanistan from that because they don't have Judeo. So do you just mean the United States?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, currently that's the country we live in, obviously.
Yes, but you do realize that the United States is not based on Judeo-Christian values any more than any other country really is.
I mean, not anymore. I mean, that's my whole point, and that's why
it never was. So, like, if you look at the Ten Commandments,
who was?
if you,
let me tell you something,
Paul, am I going to get to finish here? Paul, am I going to get to finish? So, if you look at, for example, the Ten Commandments, those are not the foundations of law in the United States. The United States is built on capitalism, which is all about coveting. There's no requirement in law that I honor my father and mother or that I honor a God. We have a freedom of religion here. You can worship a God, you cannot worship a God. There's nothing about the United States that necessarily ties it to Judeo-Christian views. And by the way, Judeo-Christian isn't a real thing. That's a word that people trot out. But Jews are one thing and Christians are another.
Okay, who was it that freed the slaves then, Matt?
Who was it that freed the slaves?
Who was it that freed the slaves?
Gotcha.
I guarantee you 99% of the people that freed the slaves were Christians.
So do you realize that the Bible supports slavery?
We can go into that for like 20 fucking hours. That would
won't take that long.
It doesn't take that long. I've already done a video of it, and it's the most common thing on this show, which is what tells me that you're a complete fraud, and you're just waiting until you can go off on gay sex or something like Chad did during Talk Heathen. So goodbye.
I don't know what you're...
Thank you.
It doesn't matter. Add that call to the list. So.
Thank you for taking that, Matt, because I'm like...
Yeah. It's funny because during Talk Heathen, there are people who suspect that was the same call. Who knows? There was a person who called in as Chad who wanted to talk about morality, and he did all this. I'm with you, Jenna. I don't think that caller was even remotely an honest interlocutor. I think this was, I wouldn't be surprised if they're sitting there recording that, trying to get clips for a YouTube call-in show or something, which people have done before.